Hello to our audience. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Under the Olive Tree, a podcast on the Greek-Israeli agenda. I'm Marianna Skylakaki, economist, founder, and editor-in-chief of Athenea, a media organization in Greece. And it's my pleasure to welcome Oshra Friedman, Deputy Director General of the Authority for the Advancement of the Status of Women in Israel, but also my good friend Mαίη Zannி, who is Special Advisor to the General Secretariat of the Prime Minister in Greece, but also co-founder and president of Women Act, a non-profit, non-partisan organization empowering women to fulfill their political, social, cultural, and economic potential. So at the time of this recording, this year's International Women's Day is fast approaching on the 8th of March, but today's podcast aims to go further. Every day is Women's Day, and the struggle for gender equality, female empowerment, and representation is constant and multifaceted. So here in Greece, the past few months have seen a powerful emergence of this agenda, with the Greek Me Too movement finally catching fire. And now, based on the Global Gender Gap Index by the World Economic Forum, Israel seems to be doing better than Greece on these issues, being ranked 67th as opposed to Greece, which is ranked 76th, I think. Now, I'd like to start our conversation today by asking each of you a somewhat personal question. You are both women who have achieved great success in your respective fields and have risen to high-ranking positions in your country's governments. So I was wondering if you could single out for us one difficulty or hurdle that you came across which would radically change the representation of women in senior positions if it was lifted. What would that be from your perspective? Oshra, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. It's great to be here and nice to meet you, everyone. I think one of the biggest issues is that sometimes when you are in a very high rank on position at the government, is that sometimes you feel a little bit lonely because around the discussion of the round table that all the big decisions have been making, usually there is less women than men. And this is one of the things that is actually hard to present and to show to everyone, because I think if we are 50% of the population, there is no excuse that the numbers are not going to change in the fact.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's so interesting. And I wonder if May has had the same experience. I can say from my perspective that has been the case quite often. It's very, very disheartening and discouraging when it's the case.
Well, thank you for the question. So nice to be here and talk about these issues. I'll say that my experience of running for office in the year 2012 as an MP for Athens, which did not succeed, by the way, was the reason that the Women Act was co-founded. I found the experience of a young woman running in Greek politics a very, how shall I put it, an experience that changes you in the sense that you see all the stereotypes, you don't have mentors, you do not have the network, you don't have the funding. I saw everything from the inside, and then I thought, no more. We should not wonder why we don't have enough women elected in parliament or in local authorities. This is the reason why, because there are so many obstacles there faced by women, especially what we call emerging leaders. So it's such a different level from what happens when men run that I thought, it's time to go ahead with an organization which sole aim is to have women elected or chosen to be in positions of power in the public sphere of Greece.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, hopefully, we're going to start seeing a different picture emerging in the next few years. Change isn't happening quickly enough, but one lever for change and progress has always been a more ambitious legislative agenda. I'm a big believer in a mentality shift that you can work towards in a variety of ways, but the state and the government has a role to play here. So I was wondering, Oshra, if you'd give us your perspective on this and perhaps some of the initiatives on the legislative front that you believe would most impact gender equality. And I'd like to ask the same question to May right afterwards.
Sorry, I was on mute. I have to say on that part that Israel, even though we are a very short time exists entirely, I think we made a lot of huge success on that field in several ways. But when it's got to do where the women are in the government and the parliament, I think we are not going to like the big picture of it, because we have less women than we thought. You can see it in the last election and the existing parliament, as you can see on the picture. And one of the things that I think, and I'm happy that our authority have been moving forward, is how we can make a new policy to promote women in higher rank. And the late decision that the government did is to make sure that in a very high senior staff of the government, we'll find in each office more women as can be, because today the results is that there is 45% women in each office, but in not all of them. And also they are not really as CEOs or VP, et cetera, et cetera. And I think when you see the key where the gap is existing, and you can close it a little bit. So one thing is making the right policy in order to change that, which is, I'm happy to say that we made it happen until the next time that we can make sure that it's going to be really happening in real life. And also encouraging women from outside to come up and make sure that they will be a good candidate to any position that they exist. And in order to make sure that they will be able to do it, we build this database of experts, women from very diverse issues and experience and even education. And we went out with that database January 2020, and we thought that, you know, people will come and the women will come and register, and we thought we may have maybe 500. And I'm happy to say that until today, 4,000 women applied to that database. 2,100 of them complete the whole, paperwork in order to take part of it. And you can see what a wonderful professional, expert, strong, and high-level position have been rolled outside of the government, and they really want to make the difference and change. So people are not going to say no more that we don't know professional women who can feel this part of the job. It's actually to show them that here we go, we have the list, just name it, and don't take them because they are women, take them because they are good in what they are doing, and they have the experience, and they are willing to win, and they can be part of this policy that we are running out. And I think that our authority did a really, really good job on that part to show that the excuses should be out, and working out and make the hard work should be step in.
That is honestly fascinating, because it is a constant course that we do hear, that, oh, we do want to hire women, but there just aren't, good enough women for these positions. Or, from my experience, and I'm sure May in Greece, your experience must be similar. There are a lot of women. It's just a matter of elevating them so that the people in power can see the great work they're doing. And a big issue from my perspective has been the fact that a lot of these women in this age, this professional age where they have experience, a lot of them have children, which means that they don't necessarily have the extra time to put themselves out there as aggressively as men have been able to do. So I wonder if we could get May's perspective on this, but also the extent to which you see, and that's a question to you as well, Oshra, whether you see the compulsory part of it as a key to this equation. So, is it enough to just create the structures and promote women? Do we need to get change as quickly as we need? Do we have to do something more radical, more compulsory, let's say, more mandatory?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, May, the full question to you, and then we'll go back to Oshra for
fine. No problem.
Great. Okay.
Well, first of all, let me say that indeed we have lots of experts in Greece too, but they're not organized and they're not recognized. And this is part of what Women Act is trying to achieve. We started a campaign called No More Manels, which aims to do exactly what it says, have panels that are more representative, have women be there as speakers, not just moderators, which is often the case. And definitely the site of events and conferences where women are in the audience and not up there speaking is something that's very frustrating. So we started this campaign, and until now, here I'd like to thank Marianna and Athena.
We were one of the first pledgees, I guess. Yeah,
exactly. But now we have most of the country's think tanks and organizations behind us pledging this. So we think this will be a game changer. And at the same time, we're preparing an experts database at Women Act, where we will have speakers, because lots of times we hear that. We say, oh yes, we'd love to have gender balanced panels, but we don't really know, especially when it comes to science, which is very frustrating because we do have scientists. It's just that men tend to monopolize the media exposure and all that. So this is a never-ending cycle, really. Less women appear on TV and other outlets, and then they don't get called to make speeches or contribute somehow, and hence they're not known, hence they're not asked on TV. It's never-ending, and we're trying to break that. So yes, it's important. I wanted to go back to legislation because though not being the expert on that, I would say that right now with the quota system we have in Greece, we have enough women on lists, but we don't get them elected, which is, I'll give an example. We have 332 municipalities in Greece, and yet we only have 19 women mayors. Mm-hmm. Yet we have hundreds of women as municipal councillors, which means they do all the work, they make it, they get elected, they make it to a certain point, and yet they do not reach the top. We do not believe at Women Act that there's an ambition gap. We believe that the system, the way it is, keeps women back by promoting society's stereotype about the place of women in the public sphere, by making their characters sound out as too aggressive or too ambitious. And here I would like to point out that we have a book coming out next week with Marianna, called I Am Dangerous, where we have asked 100 women all over Greece from different backgrounds to start telling their stories with only this phrase. And it took us to all places. All these women are either leaders or emerging leaders. Anyway, they all have this potential, and yet they're being kept back by all this happening. So yes, the legislation is there, but we need to change mentalities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I completely agree, and the book was a way for us to try and shed light, Oshra, to all of these issues, and the fact that there's a multitude of experiences, but there are common strands here that we need to really be mindful of. So what's your view on this mix that May mentions between the legislative front and all of these other initiatives?
I do believe that at the end of it, we are talking about how we educate people to think, because gender equality, it's not really up only by women. It's not up just, but it's not up to us only. And I think that men and women and kids in every age should take part of it and change the situation. You may not able to educate a person on the age of 50, but if you take programs into schools at the kindergarten and show them that children are not talking in a sense of a boy or a girl, they're talking in a sense of, if I want to be a grown-up, what kind of a person I want to be, who are the leaders that I've been exposed to, and what kind of position I can attend to apply for. And if they don't have those kind of role models, we will find ourselves still working on that field ages and ages. And this is a situation that we can change, because if you just change the state of mind and bring it to the knowledge of the both sides, whether the policy and the decision makers and the women in the field who we know that they are wonderful, not just by face, by professional and experience and education, and lead them the way to come in and to make sure that they have a mentor who can help them. They have the answers, they have the role models to see. And at the end of it, when you see the room with the existence of the both gender, and you see the discussion, you can see that, oh my God, why I didn't think to bring a CEO, a female CEO before, why I wasn't thinking to make sure that in my office, 50% of them will be women, because we know what kind of strength a woman have But we all know what kind of a challenge that we have. You have to go early from work to pick up the kids. You still are the main point who is responsible of the house. You are not going to stay at long hours as men should be. And that's why you also going to have a gap when it comes to the salary of your work. And all those kind of challenges. And no, we are not shouting and yelling at the meetings. We know how to handle it right. We don't need to be aggressive, manage things in an aggressive way. It might be a man way, but it's not a woman. We know how to handle things. And I think this is kind of things that you have to bring on daily basis on the conversation and show the society, and whether a woman or a man, and also bring it to the government, because sometimes when you planning a program or any policy that you want to make, you have to take the gender equality in occasion. Otherwise, you're going to say the same results. You're going to keep doing what you are doing today, and we are not going to go farther than that.
And I completely agree that a horizontal approach is needed, because it really, gender equality has an application to almost every part of a family, of a person's life, if you think about it. So, sometimes it's maybe too restrictive to just think about equality in the workplace, or just think about, violence against women and harassment, or just think about family responsibilities, or sexism, or all of these stereotypes. So trying to create a more holistic approach, I think, is something that has become a lot more mainstream over the past few years, and I think that's important. And talking about what's become mainstream in terms of policy making, I wonder how important dialogue and international cooperation can be in this process. The exchange of best practices, for example, could be a very fruitful exercise. May, what do you think from your experience and from your position as well in the government?
Well, I think it's very important for us in Greece. For example, we have the European Index for Gender Equality, and this year has us in a very low position again out of the 27 countries. Of course, the figures are from 2018, but it just shows you that there's room to improve. It's very important to see what's happening elsewhere and see how we can elevate the status of women here as well. We've had some changes. For example, we've had the Secretary General for Gender Equality became an undersecretary now, so a deputy minister for family and demography and gender equality. So we see changes, but I think most of all, what's important for Greece is also to have a civil society that is in dialogue, not just internal, but external. And that's why, for example, today's initiative is very good for us, because that means that someone like Women Act will actually say that, oh, look, they're doing this in Israel, perhaps we can propose this here. So speaking as an NGO, from my NGO position now, I will say that for us, almost every idea I've had has been coming from abroad, because in Greece it's still very recent. And here I would like to talk about the Me Too movement, which finally arrived here 4 years after the US. It's happened to us. It's only been 2 months now, but at least here, this government has embraced it. There's even a MeTooGreece.gr site. There's been symbolic actions, and also more substantial, taken by the Prime Minister, taken by the first female president we have of the Republic. It's important that all these are externalized and that people inside, but we should also remember that we have another 10 million Greeks living abroad, see that this is a different country, and it's a country where women can actually not just be at the top, but all obstacles that are stopping them from reaching their full potential are slowly being taken out of the picture.
It's a really interesting timing for Greece, and that was my next question was going to be on Me Too. But I was wondering, Oshra, what you think about this best practice exchange and international dialogue on these issues. I think what May said, the fact that organizations in Greece are learning so much and have, in a way, a roadmap to the way certain things can be done, is one of the few good things of this delay in the Me Too movement in Greece. That we've seen other countries become a lot more aggressive in how they handle these issues. What's your opinion on this?
First of all, I have to say that Me Too make the huge change, I think, for all the countries all over the world, and it's kind of awareness what kind of things that we should consider as a government presenters. And I have to say that I do agree with the fact that we are learning from each other by making sure that common visits or sharing ideas, especially at the UN and the OECD. And I can share with you two things that happened to us in a few years now. One of them is that Israel is I really hope that I'm right on that, but Israel is one of the 17 countries that have adopted the gender analysis of the state budget into the government policy among the 34 OECD countries. And this is the first time that the Israeli government had made this kind of decision and went to learn what happens in the world, because it's totally different in what is happening to us now. And we learn it from Canada and any other countries that is doing it for several years now. And I have to say that this is the third year that our budget of the government have been analyzed in 100% of the budget. And this is the one of the huge work that our authority is doing. The second thing is that sexual harassment have become an issue that, you know, we face it every day, but I think in the couple of years now, it's been a huge remark that we have to deal with, a phenomenal thing that, you know, I think everyone is having their own struggle. One of the things is how you make a campaign to change the situation and make everyone involved on that part. And our authority came up, and for the first time, the government agreed to establish a program, a plan for several years, and make sure that we have a commission. We call it Medjibush Commission. Eva Medjibush is the director of the authority, and she was the head of it. And this commission is actually came up with 38 recommendations, which 88 from the 38 recommendation have been implemented immediately at the first year. And now we're talking about a commission that given 10 million shekels. It never happened before. And we gather around the table, everyone from the NGOs, the government officers, people from the field who are really familiar and handle with this kind of a situation, and make sure that at the end of it, we'll be able to suggest to the government the right solution, how to go and handle this kind of situation. I have to say that I was happy about it because our director makes sure that the government will adopt all the 38 recommendations. And you know what? When we went to meet other people, our colleagues from other countries, they loved it. Mm-hmm. We actually gave them the right tool how to make sure that this kind of movement will happen. And I think if you take the fact how globally we can work together, learn from each other, maybe take policies that work in one country and adjust it to our country, and take something that we do right and make sure to share it with others. I think learning from each other is one of the things that we can do best. And I also believe that there is things that they are not going to fit to each country, but we are willing to have this kind of dialogue and learn from each other.
I think it's really fascinating, and it's really, really useful and fruitful. And obviously today's discussion, I think, is an example of that. And talking about these tools, I think sometimes we don't give people enough credit in terms of what they want to do. Sometimes they just don't know how. And it's a matter of putting the right mechanisms in place, inspiring people, giving them solutions. And a question that I have for both of you is the extent to which you see technology as a key factor in this process, and the tools that we now have. Is technology an ally to gender equality and female empowerment? May, would you like to take this first?
Well, I think it can be if a few things are changed early on. When we're talking about, for example, artificial intelligence, we must think that not all scientists are men. And in teams of men and women, women should also have a say in what is being used, what methods and what elements. This is important. Women and artificial intelligence is like a new thing that has not been explored yet, but it can be a game changer for women because it will bring so many changes. And if a more equal society comes out of it, that's very important. But we should also remember that right now, scientists are the heroes of our time. Because of the pandemic, everyone's realized the importance. And this is a very important lesson for our girls, because we see early on in Greece as well, that girls are somehow tied to traditional roles and also to their chosen professions. Many times we see biases everywhere in education, not just schools, but all over in society, in their family homes, about who they should be. So it's important that they see more and more women scientists getting the credit they should, not just members of teams, which are right now saving the world, let's face it, but also leading those teams. This is the best thing we can do for the next generation. Create a world where women lead science.
I think that's a very, very hopeful message, May, and having two young girls, young children, that's one that I really, really want us to find ways of promoting even more in our country. I think it's very, very important. Given the fact that Israel is a global leader in a lot of these issues, especially around technology, I was wondering, Oshra, if you could give us your perspective on that, the tools that technology gives us for in this quest. But also perhaps because it's also relevant to Greece, if this tech entrepreneurship ecosystem that you have in Israel has found ways to make sure that women are represented in senior positions, because we do know that there was, at least in Silicon Valley and in the US and in other places, in Greece as well, there is still a very, very clear skew towards male founders and male coders and a bit of a male-oriented culture in that space.
I have to say that as a country that it's very highly success in cyber and technology, the numbers of women in science in the couple of years now is really high. But that's not what I'm worried about as much as I wanted to say. What worries me is that why people don't see them. Okay, why children are not really see them as presented in any field, and this is something that we need to make obvious. So one of the things that how we make sure that people can see them in every field, at the panels, at the media, at the I don't know, when you have a discussion, this kind of panel on science or whatever it is, and also the numbers of the staff at the academy is really low when it got to do with women. And this is something that I think we also need to change. I think technology is one of the things that, besides the fact that it's also a professional field, but we should use it in order to change the knowledge about gender equality. So one of the things that we use on that field is that we build plans and programs. Let's say when we started to think how we can educate early childhood kids at the kindergarten about gender equality. So we thought, so what are we going to do? Okay, so we know how the media works. We know how things are going to see, and this is the digital program that you actually platform that you use in order to give them this kind of sessions. So I think on that field that we're really working on it. And talking about honors and not honors, I think the most honors on that field of women are in a very in a middle low businesses. Usually you don't see them in a big ones, even though they are full of it. And I think what happened with the coronavirus that we saw at the COVID-19 is that how easy is that the women are losing their job no matter where they are, what they are doing, what position they are, because we have 70% of the people who left their job, released from their job, are women. And this is something we never thought that we should give it a solution, even though we knew that it's going to happen and we have the database of it. And this is something that we didn't consider. And we put it on the table every single that we had a discussion saying, take a look. The one who's going to be really hurt from this COVID-19 are going to be women. And this is what happened when you don't have education, when you have a system and everything is closed. And they are the main support sometimes, especially when you talk about single mothers and you know, and socioeconomic lower situation. And this is something that we should consider for the next, because I'm not sure how fast we're going to recover from that.
And obviously this has been a wake-up call, the pandemic, for women's rights and for female gender equality. Hopefully it's going to be an opportunity for us to really, now that the genie is out of the bottle, understand that we need to act proactively and very, very aggressively to fix these issues. Thank you both so much for this discussion. We're right on the 30-minute mark, so once again, it's been fascinating talking to you. It's such a great exchange, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again soon. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Marianna.
welcome. Thank you.
Oshra.